Good early afternoon. We are live. I'm Andy Andrews. You've joined us on the Blue Plate Special from Orange Beach, Alabama. We're in the financial district, high atop the Central Skyscraper. We're here on the second floor at the wharf on the west side. And it's a pretty sunny day here in Orange Beach. It's not too hot. We have people in the studio audience. We're glad to have you guys here today. And we got any people chiming in from anywhere?
I'm trying to, something with the Facebook thing seemed to have switched or gone down or something, so I'm trying to figure that out.
Oh, so Facebook is down? So are we going to start over? What are we doing?
I mean, you're still on for Wisdom Harbor.
Okay.
Trying to fix the other thing.
We're on Wisdom Harbor, but we decided to do a broader cast. I like that little term. Today, because we're going to have a conversation. I know that I know that some of you tune in, and I know we see people tune in from all over the world. And I know you tune in on Tuesdays and Thursdays kind of for some fun, lighthearted, funny kind of stuff. I don't feel too lighthearted today. I just got to say. Let me know when we're...
Facebook's up.
Facebook's up? Okay. We're glad to have you guys who are with us on Facebook and wisdomharbor.com and LinkedIn, Instagram, and probably some other things that I'm forgetting. But we're glad you're here. I was just saying, we usually do stuff very lighthearted. Sometimes we prepare extensively for one. And, one of these Blue Plate specials. And then occasionally we just have conversations. And a lot of times those turn into a lot of laughs. And I was just saying today, I don't feel real lighthearted. Mike Pepple, good afternoon. Tammy Nance, beautiful day in South Carolina, but sad. Yep, I got you. Cliff Young's joined. Hi, Cliff. How are you doing? Nick Lassiter's here. Got people coming in literally from all over the world. I know a big office in the Pentagon watches on Tuesdays and Thursdays while they eat their lunch. We're glad to have you guys here. Sandra Blackwell, Nancy Gates. I was just as shocked as you were yesterday with the news that Charlie Kirk had been shot. Seeing the film, I suspect, well, I did get word long before it was announced that he had passed away. So they waited a while before they made that announcement, knowing something just about calibers and bullets and trajectories. I suspect Charlie was dead before they put him in the ambulance. And I'm with you thinking, what is going on in our country? You kind of, if a president gets shot or killed, you're not. I mean, it's horrible, but I guess you're not shocked, because it seems like somebody's always gunning for the president, and no matter who the president is, you just kind of wouldn't be shocked at somebody trying to get to him but. Charlie Kirk, very special person, but there are there are a lot of Charlie Kirks out there on both sides of the aisle. I mean, you think about these people starting to be targets. I think about some of my friends. I think about Dave Ramsey and some entertainers I know and some broadcasters I know and that's on both sides of the aisle. But it's a crazy place our country has gotten to right now. And I had a thought the other day, and hey to Caleb Driscoll from Mexico. Speaking of danger, be careful. I don't know if you're from Mexico or you're visiting Mexico. Either way, be careful in Mexico. And I don't go to Mexico anymore. Um, I used to go a lot because I would speak down there, but now I've turned down a bunch of dates to go to Mexico because I'm just not going anymore. Um, when they in Acapulco, when they put the head of the mayor on the steps of the Princess Hotel, that did it for me. So, but it's looking like we're kind of Wild West too. David Rawson, hi from Dallas. I had a thought the other day that I'm kind of expanding in my mind right now, and I think I'm going to probably write a piece about it. But I'll tell you what I'm kind of thinking, and that is, when somebody is young, my original thought was this: when somebody's young, they look like their parents. When they're old, they look like their decisions. Now, kind of unpacking that a little bit, I feel like, when somebody's 6, 8, 10, 18, 20, 24, they look a lot like their parents. I mean, you can say, wow, this is mom's eyes, this is dad's hairline, whatever. They look like their parents. But as people get older, things like staying out in the sun without any sunscreen or smoking or eating too much or walking 10,000 steps a day like Bill Gaither does. 90 years old, he walks 10,000 steps a day. And that's got me, that started me, like when I found out he's walking 10,000 steps a day. I'm like, okay, I better start walking, and luckily I found an article that told me that 7,000 is the actual line. So I feel better if I get over 7,000. But I got to tell you, it's a time commitment to walk 10,000 steps a day. I mean, when you're busy, which we all are, it's a time commitment. You got to figure out how to put stuff like that in there. But as you get older, you start to look like your decisions. You start to look like you decided to smoke when you were 8, or you start to look like you. Well, it's like my wife's generation. I hear them. I'm going to the dermatologist today to get checked out. And people in my generation, the ladies I'll talk about, remember laying out on the beach or out in the backyard with baby oil? And we got ladies in here that are nodding. And so I mean that maybe we didn't know anything was wrong with that then, but that was a decision we made to lay out with baby oil, and now people are looking like their decisions. Maybe something we ought to teach our younger people where you live, what you drive. Start to look like your decisions. Leslie Ann Tarabella, best-selling author and contributor to Wisdom Harbor. How are you doing? Good to see you. I saw you wrote a thing about Cracker Barrel. It's a lot funnier than the one I wrote. Okay. We've got something going in and out with the microphone, so you're going to get a live visit from Matt, who is our producer, our IT guru, and all-around nice guy. Where did he go? Oh, there he is. Okay, so you're going to mess with the microphone? Yeah. All right.
Replaced the battery in it. I wonder if it can...
Is it a different microphone or or was it a battery in the microphone?
I think so.
Well, if the microphone has a battery, why do we have to plug it in?
For the phantom power.
No answer for that. So, Leslie Ann Tarabella, I love your blog. I love your blog. You wrote about two things I've been thinking about lately. You wrote about snakes and Cracker Barrel. And I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you about snakes in just a minute. But I'm still on this thing about when you're young, you look like your parents, and when you're older, you start looking like your decisions. I think that might be true of America. Just a thought I had that, when we were young, we looked like Britain. We talked that way, we dressed that way. And as time has gone on, now we're 250 years old. We look like our decisions. We don't look anything like Britain. We look like our decisions. And, some of those decisions have made us look pretty good, and some of them have made us look pretty bad. And I think some of those decisions have rolled back on us in a way that a lot of people never expected. And I think Charlie Kirk's death yesterday was one of those. Now, I know there might be somebody out there saying, oh, so the decision to have guns everywhere, that's what you're saying? No, that's not what I'm saying. I got to tell you, now I can talk a long time about guns with you. And I've talked enough about it and thought enough about it, prayed enough and read enough about it. The gun thing, if you look at it right now, I mean, Matt, Google how many guns are in the United States. Just how many guns are there? But if you look at it right now, the gun situation in America, if we wanted to change it, if everybody really wanted to change it, there's no way. That horse has left the barn. Here's the stat. There are more than 400 million civilian-owned firearms in the United States, with some estimates placing the number close to 500 million. in some cases that makes us very safe because obviously the vast majority of gun owners are law-abiding, normal people. But the decisions that we have made, back to the gun thing, there's 400 million guns. If we wanted to ban them, we couldn't ban them. Banning an AR, an AR means means nothing. An assault style weapon, that's just the look of it. It doesn't work any different than many guns people have for hunting. It's just the look. It's like if you show a 5-year-old boy something that looks cool, it's the look of it. And we couldn't get rid of them if we had to, because if we, I know you've heard that if they outlaw guns, only outlaws will have guns. Well, that's kind of a cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason. People repeat them and repeat them and repeat them until they become cliches for a reason, and it's because it's true. If you, but the guns are not the problem. It's the decisions that we have made along the way, specifically with mental health and accepting some things that people say are normal, and they're just not normal. It's a mental health issue. The guy who killed the Ukrainian woman on the mass transportation in Charlotte the other day, he didn't need a gun to do that. There was a mass killing in one of the Scandinavian countries a few years ago, like 20-something kids at a school, and it was a knife. The mental health issue, I think, is linked directly to decisions we've made with schools, with feelings. We live in a country that has become obsessed with how people feel. And that's just a lie. It's a lie. Life does not work that way. Even for the people who believe it, life does not work that way. In the New York public school system now, there's a list of about 100 words. You can Google this. There's a list of words in the New York public school system that can't be used in the classroom, can't be used on a test, can't be used in study material, can't be in their textbooks. And these words are like dinosaurs, pizza, swimming pools. And you might say, why in the world would dinosaurs, pizza, and swimming pools? What's wrong with that? Okay, well, if you say dinosaurs, there's some people that believe dinosaurs didn't exist, that dinosaurs are a made-up thing, or that, the world is only so young, and the dinosaurs, saying that they were millions of years, that doesn't even make sense. And so, you're going to offend somebody by saying dinosaurs, so the New York City public school system says, don't say it. Some people, that creationism, and they don't, so we're just not even going to say it. You can't say swimming pools because evidently some of the kids in the New York public school system, their parents don't have swimming pools. Can you believe that? Can you believe everybody doesn't have swimming pools? So we don't want to make people feel bad that don't have swimming pools. Heck, I didn't have a swimming pool growing up. I don't have a swimming pool now. I just tell you that so that when you and I see each other in Publix, don't say anything about a swimming pool to me. I might start crying on you. You can't say pizza because Muslims don't eat it. You know, pizza has sausage on it and pepperonis, and Muslims don't eat it. And so, can't say pizza. I mean, there's between 50 and 100 words that you can say. Just Google words that are, I don't know what you put, done away with in New York City public schools. I don't know. But my point is, that's a feelings thing. You know, if somebody decides, I hesitate to say this, but I'm going to say it. You know, if somebody is a guy and they say they are a girl, I don't care. I mean, say whatever you want. You can believe whatever you want. But when you start saying, I have to believe it, now we got a problem. I mean, if you want to lie to yourself, if you want to make something up, I mean, I feel for you. But the decision with a lot of people to make somebody, you have to affirm that, you have to believe that, you have to say that. You know, this is why we're going to put tampon machines in the boys' bathrooms in schools. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of wasted thought. If you wonder how some of this stuff ever happens, I mean, have you ever looked and thought, well, I got to say, I'm sadder today than I am mad. I'm sadder than I am mad because I'm sad for Charlie Kirk's family. I'm sad for our country. But I got a little mad in there too. I mean, yesterday when the Speaker of the House asked Congress to pray for Charlie Kirk's family, and the Democrats started screaming and yelling no and the F word, and I wonder about that. And do you ever look at something like abortion, and how many people are okay with abortion? You know that messing with an eagle's nest, messing with their eggs, is a felony. I mean, you go to prison for messing with an eagle's eggs. Now, why is that? What is the logic behind if you mess with an eagle's eggs? What's the logic behind that being a felony? That being a prison sentence? Well, it's very obvious. They'll tell you the reason is because that's our national bird, and there's an eagle in there. Okay, is it an eagle? Or is it just a tissue mass. Because if it's a tissue mass, then shouldn't be any penalty for messing with an eagle's egg. I saw a guy ask one time, they asked him, do you believe that abortion is okay? That it's moral, legal, everything? And he said, absolutely, this should be a woman's right to choose. And so, and then they asked him, they said, are you a Christian? And he said, yes, I'm a Christian. So you're a Christian who believes in abortion? Yes, I am. Okay, let me ask you this. When Mary was pregnant with Jesus, would that have been okay to abort him? Would you have aborted him? Did he have to be born outside? Did he have to be outside his mother's womb to be God's son? So I see things that people are fine with, and I wonder about our culture. I wonder about how did some people start thinking this way? If you believe in the Bible or you ever read the Bible, look at, it's somewhere in Romans, but this was brought to my attention a few years ago. I had a very close friend that increasingly became irrational, and not irrational in a way that you would notice if you met him and talked to him for 10 or 15 minutes. But the people closest to him, this guy was changing for the worse. And, some of us had conversations like, what's he thinking? What? Some of the things, and you look at people and you go, okay, if I ask you 2 + 2, and you say 5, what's 2 + 2? And you say 5. Okay, that's wrong, but I can see how you got there. I can see, 2 and 2, and maybe you just glanced and said 5, but when I ask you what's 2 + 2 and your answer is orange, I don't even know how you got there. I'm just like, and so this is the way we were with this friend. And he ended up betraying a bunch of people, and just, it was one of the biggest messes of my life. And I was talking to, I'll tell you who I was talking to Ken Davis. You ought to Google Ken Davis sometimes. Ken is probably 75, 76 years old now. But Ken was the first Christian comedian to really get big. Back in the 70s, Ken was doing shows in stadiums. This was before rock bands were doing stuff in stadiums. Ken Davis, as a comedian, was doing that. So Ken and his family were down here, and I was kind of in the throes, in the aftermath of this. And Ken and I were in the car, and I said something about, I don't know he seems normal under everything, but then the decisions he's making and the choices he made, I just don't get it. And Ken said, well, have you read in Romans what happens to people who turn away from God? I was like, well, I'm sure I've read it, but I don't remember exactly what you're talking about. And he said, your friend was turned over to his own mind. And so I went and I read that, and it's true. It's in the Bible that when people stop listening to God, and God gives them chances and chances and chances and chances and chances, and they refuse to listen and refuse to, that there comes a point where God turns them over to their own thinking and says, okay, you got it. Do whatever you want. And the Bible says that when God turns a people over to their own thinking, things turn upside down. And right becomes left, up becomes down, red becomes green, and it describes what happens with those decisions and how it just sinks, and that's what I see with a lot of the United States, because you look at some things and you go, how do you even think that? How are you even imagining that? I mean, you've seen the videos, I'm sure, of all the politicians, all the politicians that are going nuts right now about the illegal immigration being stopped. All these politicians are going nuts. You can go on YouTube and find the same politicians 15 years ago saying, we got to stop this illegal immigration. We got to stop this, and it's like, if you're going to be a successful liar, you can't ever veer from your lie. If you're going to be successful at it. I wish I could hear what you're saying. Because we're just having just a regular, I guess, a brain drain from me. I wrote this book a number of years ago, How Do You Kill 11 Million People? And it talks about the truth. That's the subtitle of the book, Why the Truth Matters More Than You Think. And this book was briefly on the New York Times bestseller list. And it talks about America's trajectory. And I wrote this a while back. When did I do this? 2011, so 14 years ago. And, when I wrote this, I didn't really expect this to be more critical 14 years later than it was when I wrote it. But there are a few people who still buy the case and give them away. When I wrote it, I was determined, and this book it does not have the word Republican or Democrat in it. It doesn't have the word liberal or conservative, left or right. And in fact, I wanted to write a book that told the truth that everybody would agree with. And so I saw evidence of that, obviously, as the book's being distributed. But I've got a really funny picture. Now I'm forgetting the guy's name. Who's the guy on CNN? Yeah, Anderson Cooper. I've got this really funny picture. It's actually two different pictures that we kind of framed them together. If I'd have given it to Matt, I could have shown it to you. But we've got Donald Trump holding the book like this, and right beside him got Anderson Cooper holding the book like this. And so okay, I guess we did it. I guess we wrote a book that everybody agrees with. If you go out on the street and just ask the average person, do you think that politicians, that it's okay for them to lie, or should they tell the truth? Every person you ask that is going to say, oh, they should tell the truth, even if they're lying about it. But it's something everybody believes, but nobody really holds anybody to it. Got a lot of nice comments coming through about the book. When this book came out, if it wasn't for, I hesitate to say this because then there'll be people go, well, I'm not reading that stupid book. But if it hadn't been for Glenn Beck, this book would have never seen the light of day. I was in the middle of doing a lot of Fox News stuff then, and I was in New York. I was in the car with the driver and the publicist. I was in the car headed to Fox News studios, and we got a call that every one of my appearances on Fox had been canceled. And I'm already in New York. I'm 5 minutes from the studios. And the publicist took the call, and he asked the question, why, what is, and the answer we got, Sean Hannity said, we love Andy, but we cannot do anything with that book. And so, it did not go into Barnes & Noble. It didn't go into local bookstores. People just were really quiet about it. But then Glenn Beck got it, read half of it on his radio show, and then talked about it several more times. And a lot of people caught on. But of all the books that we have that people buy by the case, and they buy Traveler's Gift by the case, and Heartmender, and Noticer, and Butterfly Effect by the case, we probably sell more cases of these than anything. And people are just giving them away. I wanted to write a book that would take less than 15 minutes to read, and did that. But this is about the culture of our nation and what we need to do to take it back. I don't think, I explained to Adam one time. Adam was a little bitty guy, and he asked me something, and I gave him the answer, and I know what it was. We were in a deer stand, in a shooting house, and we were whispering to each other, and Adam's like 7 years old or something. He says, "Dad, what is abortion?" I'm like, This is one reason I tell people you ought to deer hunt with your kids, whether you have a gun or not. Just go with the camera, because to be in a 8x8 wooden box in the middle of the woods for 2 hours without any cell phones or radios or games or anything, you whisper with your kids, and they're patient with the answers because they know they're going to be there for a while. And I mean, if Adam had asked me that at home, I'd have probably said, what? No, hang on. Let me go do this, and I'll be right back. Have you talked to your mother about this? Where'd you hear this? But I'm stuck in a box in the woods with him, and so I said, well, let me see. And I prayed real quick, and I came up with an answer for him, and told him the truth, and he was horrified, and he said, well, why can't we just get those people out of office that are in charge? And I said, well, here's the truth. Now, there's a lot of examples that you're going to hear about. There's 2 kind of people, there's 5 kind of people, or whatever. But for this example, I'm going to tell you there's 3 kind of people. There's the wise, the evil, and the foolish. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of wise people. Fortunately, there's not a lot of evil people. But there is a whole trainload of foolish people. It's usually the wise people and the evil people that are at odds. And so if wise versus evil is wanting to lead a certain way, and they're wanting to be elected. Now, this is how I explained it to my 7-year-old. If they want to be elected to lead everybody, wise people will generally tell the truth. Because they know the truth is the right thing to do. And so they tell the truth, but you've heard the truth sometimes hurts. And so, they'll say things like, we're spending more money than we can afford to spend. We're spending more money than we are earning. If in our house, Adam, if mom and dad spent more money than we were earning, they would kick us out of the house. I mean, we have to watch that. We have to make sure that we're not spending more than we're earning. And so the United States of America is like a big house. And so the wise people might say, we can't spend more than we're earning. And we've done this for a while. And so now we're not going to be able to eat steaks a lot. Okay, we're going to have to go with soup sometimes and sandwiches. We're not going to be able to eat out as much. And that's what the wise people tell them. But then the evil people, they'll stand up and they don't care about telling the truth. All they care about is winning. And so they'll say anything. We ain't got to save money. We got plenty of money. There's plenty of money for ice cream for everybody. We're going to get free ice cream for everybody. We got plenty of money. We ain't got to save anything. You hadn't had enough ice cream in your life, and so we're going to make sure you have free ice cream. Okay, so one's the truth, one's a lie. Unfortunately, the audience for that see, when foolish people hear that, they always go with the free ice cream. And so when you have numbers of people who are bigger numbers wanting free ice cream and expecting stuff like that, and people that will be lied to and they'll believe a lie, that's how you end up with certain leaders. I remember watching Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama on a CNN debate where they were both just sitting down. There was a commentator there, and I remember watching that. It was before President Obama was elected, and the question was, "What about minimum wage?" And Hillary went first, and she said, the minimum wage we have today is a travesty. Anybody who thinks that they can live on this, a minimum wage. So when I'm elected president, we're gonna raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and we're gonna make sure that people are getting their blah, 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 blah. And so I thought, well, this is curious. How's Obama going to counter this? And so then they went to Obama, and he said, this is one place that Hillary and I agree. And so, when I'm elected president, I'm going to make sure that the minimum wage goes way up. Okay, so I'm sitting there listening to this, and I'm going, okay, wise people understand that the minimum wage is just part of the fabric of a business that a business has to take care of. Their prices factor in that, okay? And so if all of a sudden you make McDonald's go from $7.95 minimum wage to $15, in a way they don't care because they're just going to raise their prices. They're going to get their same margins anyway. So they're just going to raise their prices. Which means that you might be making more per hour, but everything costs so much more, your income stability is kind of the same or even less, because a lot of companies, smarter ones, will go, they're liable to keep doing this, and so we're not just going to raise it to where this will cover it. We're going to have to raise it past where it'll cover it. And so now, you're making $15 minimum wage, but you have less buying power than you had before. And so I'm sitting there listening to these two talk about this, and I'm thinking, doesn't everybody know this? But no. Apparently, everybody doesn't. So they're both lying because they're lying about what's going to happen. They're lying, and then I think, who are they lying to? They're lying to their people. They're lying to their voters. Lying just drives me nuts because there's never any good outcome for it. And that's true whether Clinton or Obama or Trump or Biden or anybody's doing it. But some of them are easy to see through. Okay, I told you I'd tell you a story about snakes. After I got through talking about snakes, politics, snakes. You've heard the old definition of politics, right? Latin word, poly, meaning many, ticks, meaning bloodsuckers. Oh boy. But in our old age, we are starting to look like our decisions. Take prayer out of schools, prayer out of the marketplace. And let me go back to this. I didn't finish the thing about feelings. You know, we live in a country that's obsessed with feelings. And yet, that's a lie. It's a lie. Because even people who create regulations according to feelings, people who create laws according to feelings, even their lives don't work that way. Because your life doesn't revolve around what you feel. It revolves around what you do, how you act. I mean, from the time you were a little kid, every good thing that happened to you happened because of something you did, not because of how you felt. You know, when every girl who liked you or every boy who liked you, they didn't like you because of how you felt. They liked you because of how you acted, how you did things. You know, there's not a teacher anywhere who said, well, you know, he got a C on this paper, but I know how bad that'll make him feel, so I'm going to give him an A. You know, you never saw a high school coach or college coach go, you know, we got a new guy on the team, and he can't really throw well, but he's going to start at quarterback this Saturday because we all know it's going to really make him feel great. That it just isn't how it works. You know, have you ever applied for a job, ever been in an interview and had the interviewer say, if I get you this job, how are you going to feel? Nobody cares. I mean, when it boils down to it, nobody cares. They only care how you act, what you do. Here's my snake story. This is absolutely true. This is not a be true or BS. This is absolutely true. I have a friend who lives in Mobile, and he got home one day from work and was gonna get the charcoal grill going. And so he had this big bag of Royal Oak natural charcoal. And he'd had it for a week or so. SB's over there smiling because she knows what story I'm going to tell. And so he goes out. They have a pool. I ought to be mad at him because he has a pool. Went out to the pool house, gets the grill ready, and gets the big 50-pound bag of Royal Oak natural charcoal. And he cuts it open a little bit. You know, it's got those strings, and trying to get it open. He gets it open a little bit like that and hefts it up and does it, and he can't get any charcoal to come out. And so then he opens it up a lot more, opens it like halfway open, and he puts in, and 2 or 3 chunks fall out, and then it stops again. And he's like, I've got a big hole in this sack. Why is this not doing? You know, why is this charcoal not coming out? And he said, I normally said, I don't know why I didn't do this. Normally I would have stuck my hand in there and raked some out. I guess I was just wanting to keep it off my hands. But I looked around to see what was stopping that up. And he said, when I looked around, there was a head of a snake about as big as my hand. And he said, I'm like this far from it, and I'm trying to get, is this a snake or an unusual chunk piece of charcoal? He said, and that tongue came out, and he said, I threw the bag and, you know, started screaming for my son to bring the gun, and he comes out with a BB gun, and I said, no, a real gun, bring a real gun. And so he had thrown the bag in the middle of the backyard. And this is where, by the way, in the story, when we sat down, for lunch one day, he had said something about it, and I said, "What is this?" He said, "I hadn't told you about this." I said, "No, you hadn't told me about it." And so he gets his phone, and he said, "Okay, if I didn't have the video of this, I would not tell you because you'd never believe it." So now the video starts rolling, and his son comes out with a hoe, that's the snake required assault weapon for anybody in the South. I mean, you got a gun right there, but no, get the hoe. And so he has the hoe, his son has the hoe. He's like a 19, 20-year-old son. And my friend is videoing, and he takes the hoe and he kind of does the bag, and it just kind of wobbles a little bit. And then he gets the hoe in the opening and tears it open. Charcoal falls out, and an 8-foot snake. This sucker is this big around. Now, on the video, he looks solid black, but you can see markings on him. But he's solid black because he's been in the charcoal, and so he has these markings, but they're cut off by the black. You can't really tell, but it's like a diamond-shaped pattern. And his head is a viper head. It's that triangle-looking thing, and this thing is huge, and it starts to move, and so my friend kills it with the hoe, and so they're just like kind of freaked out because it's a poisonous snake, but they kind of measure him from a distance, and so like this thing's 8 feet long, and it has like rattlesnake markings and has that head, and so they're like, but there's an 8-foot rattlesnake? There's no way. Well, living in their neighborhood, who probably also has a pool, is the herpetologist for the New Orleans Zoo. And the guy spends like 2 days a week down in New Orleans at the zoo, but he is the official herpetologist. And so they call the guy, well, he's out of town, naturally. So the guy says, put it all in the freezer, put it in a bag, be careful with that head, put it all in a bag, and I'll look at it when I come home. And so when he came home, like the next day, he determined that this was the word is levitum, but it sounds like legume, but it's not that. It's a levitum viper. And they come from Pakistan, and they're not even in America. But he told my friend, he said, if that thing had bit you, he said, there's not any antivenom over here for this. He said, but if there were, you wouldn't have made it to your car. He said it's like the second most poisonous snake in the world. And so, now, we didn't really know they were from Pakistan yet, okay? I let that out too early. So my friend goes to Ace Hardware, and the next day my friend's in the medical community, and so he's in a scrub suit, and he goes in Ace Hardware and he says, could I see the manager? So the manager comes out and he says, I got a story to tell you, and I got a video, because if I didn't have the video, I wouldn't have even told you this. And he said, I'm in the medical community, and I understand what it's like. Everybody's wanting to sue everybody, and I'm not wanting to sue anybody over this. Nobody got hurt. He said, but I do want to find out what's going on. And so he told the manager this, and the manager's like, can't believe it. All right, now, a day or so ago, when my friend was talking to the herpetologist, he said, how long has that thing been in there? And the herpetologist said, he could have been in there for months. He said, snakes don't have claustrophobia. He was just waiting for his next meal. and they can live for months without eating. And he said, so he was just waiting. And he said when he got jostled and now he's coming out ready to eat. And so the Ace Hardware guy calls my friend the next day and says, could we have that video? We've checked the supplier and everything, and those bags are filled in Pakistan. That charcoal is made and packaged in Pakistan. And so this was probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe. And so but the obvious inference is there ain't no way an 8-foot snake got into that bag by accident. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, the thing was that big around and 8 feet long. It was as long as this table. And so it was a terrorist act. It was somebody saying, this is going to America? Okay, let's put this in here. So there's my snake story. And let me tell you what that has made happen in my life and what I have now made happen in yours. I don't ever open a bag of charcoal without kicking it around a little bit. And I bet you won't either. Hey, we'll get back to the fun soon. Sorry this was so down today, but I appreciate you letting me download to you. I would urge you to grab a couple of these books, give one away, and we'll see you soon. Love you guys.